Good evening, listeners. You've tuned into the ghostly broadcast, Paranormal Station. I'm your host, Timothy. In this time of American harvest, I give thanks for the fine year and plentiful spiritual bounty born of the earth from ghosts long past. Though it is often said that curiosity killed the cat, we humans are naturally exploratory creatures. Even as our world's last frontiers recede, we seek out adventure and outdoor pursuits. With that, there is always risk. We'll be hearing testimony from some of Europe's wildernesses tonight. Our contributors found more than they bargained for when they ventured out on innocuous hikes in the fields and plains. Here is our first testimony from the Cairngorms of Scotland. Dear Timothy, I've been hiking the Highlands of Scotland since I first laid eyes on its vast rolling glens. I've made it my mission to bag all the Munros out there, no matter how long it takes me. There are over 200, and it's easy to forget them all, were it not for all the photos. There is one trip, though, that I will never forget. Deep into the Cairngorms, in the valley of Loch Avon, is an unofficial bothy. Bothies are little huts that you can spend a night or two in if you're out in the Highlands. This one, however, isn't a hut at all. It's a stone. The shelter stone is a huge boulder placed on top of other rocks in such a way as to make a small crevice you can shelter inside. There's nothing in the way of amenities but a cache with a visitor's log and occasionally some candles. After a long drive and a hike down into the valley, I was happy to find the place so I could tuck into my sleeping bag for the night. An hour or so passed, and the sun had long since set, but I heard heavy, tired footsteps coming up the path. A man stooped down, grunting, and poked his head inside the shelter. "Pardon me," he sighed. "I'm afraid my knees aren't what they used to be." "Is there room for one more?" he asked. "Yes, it's just me, it seems. I didn't think anyone was still in the hills," I replied. "Oh, I've been coming to the shelter stone forever. It's sheltered many travelers for millennia. Long before people started leaving that logbook," he chuckled. "I wouldn't miss it this year." "Is this an anniversary?" I asked. "Sort of," he said. We made idle chit-chat while he laid out his sleeping bag and cooked himself a meal. We kept ourselves to ourselves, and it wasn't long before we were in our sleeping bags and drifting off to sleep. I woke up in the dead of night. I could hear what sounded like hundreds of people walking around outside. I looked over to where the old man was, and his sleeping bag was empty. I crawled out of my own bag and scrambled out of the shelter. The entire valley was lit up with spectral figures marching along the footpaths. Men and women of all ages journeyed across the crags of rock. I saw men in great kilts, clad in tartan. I saw warriors daubed in wad paint, all glowing translucent in the moonlight. "It's a sight, lad," said the old man, standing beside me. "Who are they?" I asked. "They're us. We're them, the ancient travelers of the past. They all made their way across from glen to glen," he explained. I gazed in awe. The stream of people was never ending, but the twilight started to crack at some point, and I eventually turned in. The following day, the old man was nowhere to be seen, and there was no sign of him or any of the ghosts we'd seen that night. I don't know what else to tell you, Timothy. I never got that man's name, and he didn't sign the logbook. I'm convinced that he may have been one of the ghosts himself, making one last journey through the Highlands, seeking shelter at the shelter stone once more. Yours, John. Thank you for that testimony, John. We all leave a mark in the supernatural time capsule when we travel to this earth. Our souls leave little cairns of stone on paranormal planes. Our next testimony comes from Hedda in Norway. Dear Timothy, my story is a few years old, but rest assured, my memory is as sharp as ever, and none of us has forgotten what we saw. I know they're out there, Timothy. Someone else must know, too. My friends from college usually try to get together to hike around early spring when the aurora is still visible. The aurora is a testament to how small we are and how grand our universe is. It's a beautiful sight. This time, we were fated to see so much more. About 3 days into our hiking trip, we settled in and made comfortable progress, wild camping along our planned route. It was the third night, and we had the perfect spot to see the aurora atop one of the mountains. The colors danced across the midnight sky in eerily beautiful flames of particulate light. No matter how often I see them, I'm constantly awestruck. This time, however, we started to notice something. Lights in the distance began to move across the sky in unnatural ways. They appeared through the beams of the aurora. They skidded about above the valley with incredible, supersonic speed, stopping and starting as they moved from spot to spot. We discussed what we were looking at amongst ourselves. They couldn't be man-made. Not even the most high-tech military planes could move like that. In the morning, we packed up our campsite and headed into the valley below, where we'd seen the lights dancing above. We laughed, thinking it was more of a curiosity than anything else. We came to a clearing at the bottom of the valley. Some miles down the trail, all of us were halted into stunned silence, gawking at the sight before us. A giant symbol of lines and swirling circles had been burned into the ground. Bushes, grass, trees, rocks, none of it had resisted whatever fires had blazed the symbol onto the earth. It was so precise that neither side of it had singed. Just blackened foliage juxtaposed with the lush greenery of the spring meadows. We took as many pictures as we could, Timothy. We knew that we would need evidence. Unfortunately, the skylights returned that night. This time, they were over the top of us. Whooshing, dipping, and diving over our tents, we screamed as they tormented us. I couldn't tell how big they were or what they were made of. 1 second, they were like tennis balls of light flying past my head. The next, they seemed as big as helicopters hovering above. Using our phones, we tried to film as much as possible, but it wasn't any use. They didn't burn symbols into us, Timothy, but they burned something. After they left us that second night, our phones were broken. They wouldn't work no matter what we tried. The only thing they would show was the same symbol we'd seen burned into the valley the day before. The same swirling circles and straight lines. A message? A warning? We don't know. Yours sincerely, Hedda. Thank you for that testimony, Hedda. The spirits of the paranormal realms will often leave their mark one way or another. Be glad it wasn't you and our friends who were left marked. Our next testimony comes from Max in the Austrian Alps. Dear Timothy, my name is Max, and I guess I'm a bit of a beginner in outdoor pursuits. I only got into hiking when I met my friend Felix at work. He's the one who got me into all this adventuring. We spent another weekend walking the trails amongst the evergreens and mountaintops a few months ago, wandering out into the sticks. The place we were going was remote, so we were surprised to see someone ahead in the distance. In a clearing towards one of the summits of the ridge, we made out a lone figure. He was wearing a brightly colored orange hiking jacket, and we waved his arm in a significant, wide-armed motion at us. "Do you think he needs help?" I asked. He started waving both arms at us, crossing them over his head as he did. He was a long way off, but close enough to see. Still, it would take a while to reach him. "It looks like it. We should check the map and see the best route," Felix said. Having altered our route, we picked up our pace and marched down the ridge towards the distressed man. An hour and a few miles later, we huffed and puffed our way to the clearing where we'd seen him. I looked back towards where we had come from, while Felix looked around for our sign of the man in the orange jacket. I was gulping down mouthfuls of water when Felix grabbed my arm. "There!" shouted Felix as he pointed further into the valley. The man was waving at us just as before. "Well, he can walk. Couldn't he have waited?" I asked. "He might have someone with him who can't. Let's pick up the pace," Felix said eagerly. We followed the trail once more, eventually reaching where the man had been waving at us. Once again, we found ourselves in an empty clearing, looking around for this guy. I spotted him a short scramble down the rocks, about halfway down towards the valley floor. I told Felix, and we set up our rope. He guided me down from the top while I headed towards the man. As I got closer, he didn't say anything but stopped waving and disappeared behind a rock. I kept shouting reassurances to him, but it made me nervous that he didn't appear to have anything wrong with him. With one final clamber to go, I leaned my head around the last rock to catch a glimpse. I recoiled in horror, lost my footing, and fell from the rock onto my back. The man in the orange coat sat slumped up against the boulder. His vibrant orange coat was weathered and torn, but still unmistakably his. His black trousers were torn open, and despite the many months of decomposition, his injuries were apparent. He had died a long, long time ago. Unable to make the climb back out, I relayed the find to Felix, who carefully climbed down to me to confirm it. "We can't carry him out. We'll have to mark it and head for the nearest town," Felix said. Neither of us wanted to state the obvious. No one had been around for miles, and we looked at the exact figure in the same orange coat. He'd guided us to his own corpse. A specialized team eventually recovered the man, and his wife and children got the closure they sought. Yours, Max. Thank you for your testimony, Max. The spirits that hang on in our mortal world do so with good reason. Even when it's hard to see, something is always locking them here. Our final testimony. Dear Timothy, I'm Gudrun, and I'm writing about an incident my friends and I witnessed. We didn't record anything about it, but I swear to you, what we saw was real. I saw it, heard it, felt it. Iceland is covered in old volcanoes. While many are still active, a lot are dormant or completely extinct. We were headed to a picturesque lake in the middle of a volcanic crater called Lake Askja. We were heading there at the back end of the season when the roads were still open, but most tourists had been and gone. The four of us wanted the lake and the campsite to ourselves. We were glad to find that there wasn't another soul there when we arrived. Our tents were thrown up quickly, and a fire was set. I took a stroll around the smaller Viti caldera, taking in the breathtaking views of the larger lake. From the top of my vantage point, I hurled a stone at the frozen surface of Viti. It bounced and skidded on the rock-hard ice. We ate, drank, and danced on the frozen lake that night. We laughed and frolicked, played loud music, and enjoyed the wilderness all to ourselves for miles in all directions, completely unaware of what lurked beneath the ice. I skidded a little too fast and tumbled onto my bottom. We all laughed until we heard the ice crack. Smiles dropped from our faces, and I felt my whole body tense, wondering if the ice was about to crack and swallow me into the cold water below. Tentatively, we shuffled off of the lake, but the cracks continued. We heard deep groans of shifting ice sheets. The surface at the center of the lake started to warp and bulge. "Is it erupting?" I asked out loud. No one answered. We were frozen, mouths agape at the spectacle. The ice bulged up at the center of the lake and split open. Water poured out and burst forth like a steam jet. That's when we all assumed we were seeing an eruption, and we scrambled to grab our essentials and run. As we clambered up the caldera's walls, a colossal bursting of steam, water, and ice blew out into the sky. I looked down to glimpse the lava coming out, but didn't see any. Instead, I saw a blackened, smoldering figure climbing out of the ice. Steam hissed as it put its hands onto the ice. It slipped and slid as it climbed. I could feel the intense, scorching heat from it even a few hundred meters away. With skin as black as coal and red-hot, glowing eyes, it leaned back into the sky, spread out its arms, and wailed into the night. Screams stabbed into our ears, and we clutched our heads in agony. All around the figure, the ice melted, and the lake started to boil. The creature continued to sing its ghastly, ear-splitting song. Holding our hands to our heads, we ran up the crest of the crater and out into the night. It was a few kilometers to our car in the dark, but we ran frantically. We barely stopped to catch our breath before we sped off down the road in the car. My country is a magical place full of old folklore, tales of hidden people that are all meant to be children's stories. That wasn't an old wives' tale, Timothy. We all saw it. It was real, pained, visceral. I don't know what that was, but I can't be a good omen. I only hope that we aren't cursed by it in any way. Kind regards, Gudrun. Thank you, Gudrun, for your testimony. While you mentioned old folk tales, they usually all begin with some truth. Ancient histories passed down through the centuries, distorted by time into vague concepts and fables. It makes them no less real, however. This concludes our testimonies for the evening, dear listener. I hope you enjoyed the night's ghostly broadcast, Paranormal Station. If you enjoyed this evening's broadcast, please like and subscribe. Tap the bell icon to be notified of our future testimony readings as they're broadcast. It helps to support our work of documenting the supernatural worldwide. Have a good evening, listeners. I've been Timothy, your host for the evening. Rest easy.